Hi, I'm Jada from Girl from the Coast Designs. Welcome to my studio. Today I want to talk through the techniques used in stranded knitting, and I am going to illustrate that through this piece here, the frame cowl, and I'll talk you through some of the things that you need to be aware of when making this kind of design and some of the traps that can be avoided. So the frame design is a relatively simple 3-colour design. This is it in the neutrals, and here in the mini frame sweater you can see what it looks like in primary colours. So a very different vibe, but very classic, very stylish no matter what. Specifically when we're talking about the frame cowl, there are 2 options offered in the frame cowl pattern, which is available through my Ravelry store, and they are both infinity cowls. So we start with a provisional cast on, and if you're not familiar with this technique, it is covered in one of my other videos. And then the cowl, when it's completed, and this is almost full length now, it's twisted and grafted together for a seamless finish. The 2 options that are available for the cowl depend on your confidence in terms of managing stranded knitting and whether you wish for a seamless jog around the start and finish. So the easier option of the 2 has this spine that goes in a colour of your choice. I've used the darker shade in this instance, and that means that you can't see where in circular knitting the rows start and finish, because if the spine wasn't here there would be a jog, so the stitches would be mismatched unless you follow a specific technique that is slightly more complicated. Using that technique is the other option that is offered inside the pattern. But today what I want to talk to you about, which seems to be where most knitters new to stranded knitting lose their confidence and get disappointed with their results, and that's how to maintain tension when we're working with floats along the back. And floats are these strands of wool that are carried behind stitches when you're working in the other colour. And what we're aiming for as an end result is for these floats to be loose enough that the pattern and the stitches are even. If they're too long, you'll end up with oversized stitches. If they're too tight, and I'll just pull one so you can see what it looks like, if they're too tight, then stitches disappear and you don't get that nice even tension, which is what we're looking for. We don't want it that gappy that you can see those floats going in behind, and there's a bit of a technique that we can use that I'm going to share with you today about how we manage that. The other thing to be conscious of is this is a unwashed and unblocked garment, so you will get an even better result after it's washed and blocked, because the yarn will bloom and will fill in some of these little gaps that are still there. But I will show you how we manage tension and gauge. So I'm in a row where we're using just these 2 colours. So this is a ferrule design where no more than 2 colours are used in any one row. And the beauty of this pattern is it's a 10 stitch repeat, but only 4 rows actually use 2 colours. The other rows are stripes. So it's a great starting point. So this is a very simple, it's a 3-stitch pattern, and it's 2 of the chocolate, 1 of the cream, 2 of the chocolate, 1 of the cream. So I've done my cream and I'm about to do a chocolate, and just take note of where my stitches are on the needle. So you will see that they're not all bunched together. If they were, these floats would end up far too short and the stitches will pull. So I'll show you again. I'm about to do a cream stitch and my stitches are widely spaced. So I'll do that again with the chocolate. See how I'm holding that stitch up there? 1, The next one, you don't need to hold them so far apart because you're using the same yarn as you just used. And we're on to the cream, which when I find it. So I'm holding that stitch up there. And that ensures that these floats that go along the back have sufficient length that when the fabric is lying flat, those stitches aren't bunched up. Now you may find, and you may be a bit alarmed when you do the next row, and these are 2 rows that are identical, these stitches may appear slightly big and slightly full. Don't panic about that. That's because when you're knitting them, the tension on the back of these floats is released, and so the stitch looks bigger. Trust the process and carry on. You'll find when you've then completed the next row that those stitches sit nice and evenly. So we're ready to twist and graft the cowl. First off, just emphasising the importance of washing and blocking the partially finished cowl prior to doing this, because once you've created that twist, it's actually really hard to push the shape of the cowl back into the measurements that we actually want, because quite oftentimes the yarn will actually stretch and the cowl will end up much longer than you actually want or need for a good fit around the neck. So by washing and blocking beforehand, even though it's a little bit messy because you have your working yarn that you need to soak with it, it's actually worthwhile, because then you can gently push the cowl back into the shape and the dimensions that are outlined in the pattern. As you will see here, the yarn has bloomed beautifully and the stitch definition is much fuller and very even. So I put my working stitches onto a holding cord when I washed and blocked it, and I've just put those back onto the needles. So I'm now down at the cast on end, and I am slowly but carefully unravelling this provisional cast on and picking up the live stitches. So if you want to look in here, there is a little tan stitch here, and I'll just get my needle underneath that, and then we'll pull that crochet undone, and I have one new stitch on my needle, and I'm just going to carry on around, and then when it's done I will come back to you and I'll show you how we create the twist and then graft the cowl together. Okay, so here we are. I have picked up all those provisional cast on stitches. I have done a sanity check and counted them to make sure that I do in fact have the 108 stitches that I'm supposed to have, which I do, so that's good. Now we're going to put the twist in the cowl. So all we are going to do is to twist that way and take the top of the cowl up here. Now what I need to do is to move these needles around a half turn so that both sets of needles face in the same direction, ready for the graft. Right, so I now have needles through both ends of the cowl. I have my working yarn attached here, and we're now going to graft the 2 sets of stitches together. So it is going to be the back set of stitches attaching to the front set of stitches with those 2 middle loops there in the middle. So a standard graft where the setup passes have been done. So knit and off on the front stitch. Setup pass for the second on the front. Purling off on the back. Set up pass on the second stitch on the back. Knit and off. Set up pass. Peel one off. Set up pass, and we'll just carry on like this right around the cowl, and I'll show you when it's finished what that graft round looks like. Okay, so here's the finished graft. I have steamed it and made sure that all the stitches are nice and even. I'm really pleased with how it's come up, and if you do follow the pattern, it ends up just being this last main colour stripe, given that we start on the first row of this ferrule row as well. So really happy with it. Take your time. It is a bit of a lengthy process, but as you can see, it's absolutely worth it.